started?
Yeah, just give me 1 minute. Okay, we're ready to go.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. We're here to have our final departments come before us for Ways and Means Budget Bill number 1. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd,
Present.
Alderman Vaccaro,
Present.
Alderwoman Howard,
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Muhammad, Alderman Oldenburg,
Present.
Alderwoman Navarro, Alderwoman Middlebrook,
Present.
Alderwoman Evans,
Present.
Chairwoman Davis,
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Navarro. 8 present, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. I'd like to request the review and a motion for our minutes, please.
I'll make the motion that we approve the minutes of our prior meeting. Second.
It's been moved and second to adopt our minutes from June 5th. Please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
I'm sorry, was that Alderwoman Spencer?
And Howard.
Thank you. Alderwoman Boyd, Alderman Muhammad, Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook,
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans,
Aye.
Chairwoman Davis.
Aye.
9 aye votes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So for our review for Board Bill number 1 pertaining to our city budget, we have 3 presentations that are going to be made to us today. And we're going to start off with the Director of CREA, our Civil Rights Enforcement Agency, and Charles Bryson will be the presenter, and he will introduce his other guests that are speaking with him from his staff. Thank you. Go right ahead, Mr. Bryson.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Ways and Means Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I will be the only person presenting today and answer any questions that you all may have. Let me give you an overview, not just for you all, but certainly members of the audience, what the Civil Rights Enforcement Agency does. We enforce federal, state, and local anti-discrimination laws, rules, and regulations in 3 buckets, if you will: fair housing, equal employment opportunity, and public accommodation or disability. We impartially investigate claims of discrimination based on federal, state, and local protected classes or traits. And the city of St. Louis actually has 7 laws which correspond to protected classes or traits. They are briefly race, color, gender, sex, religion, national origin, familial status, disability, and age and employment. The city of St. Louis has added gender identity or expression, source of income, domestic violence or stalking, previous criminal justice involvement, hair, and then the last one was a variety of issues around housing and employment, and that was 71344, that was recently signed into law by Mayor Jones. For a little background, on July 18th of 2018, CREA was one of 3 civil or human rights entities that the other 2 being Missouri Commission on Human Rights and the Kansas City Human Rights Commission that were suspended by HUD from involvement in contracts with their programming. Due to that, we lost a position and a half, and we also lost some administrative dollars and some training dollars. And again, that was on July 18th of 2018. We have since worked with our rollover funds, which have finally now been depleted. And so we're trying to work through that. And what we now have is 1 investigator versus having 3 investigators previously. We still have our EEOC contract, and that's going relatively well. We don't necessarily receive funding for our public accommodation enforcement because there's no entity other than city funds to fund that type of program. Briefly, the other activities we're involved in, we are rewriting the citywide Title VII or Title VI or non-discriminatory plan based on the usage of federal funds. We're also rewriting the language limited English proficiency plan. We attend, as you all know, ward, neighborhood, block unit, community meetings, and we do what we call tabling at a lot of city activities and events. So with that, just to bring you an update finally, our current case inventory is we have 19 fair housing cases, 3 employment cases, and 3 public accommodation cases. And once people sign our charge of discrimination form, we will have 6 additional cases. 5 of them will be in housing and 1 will be in public accommodation. And with that, Madam Chair, I will answer any questions that you all may have.
Okay, I'll start with our committee members. Alderman Boyd.
Sure. Good morning, Charles Bryson.
Good morning, Alderman.
So do you think, first of all, let me back up. Of the cases that you guys have in your inventory, how many cases have, no, let me back up. You said inventory, so that's mean you're working on them, correct?
Correct.
How many cases from the previous year have you guys resolved?
Some of them are ongoing. I would say we have, we've closed 34 cases. A case may be over a year in length due to a lot of different issues, but we have what we would say 34 cases that have been closed between 2020 and 2021.
And who represents you legally, the office?
It would be the city councilor's office by ordinance.
And how often do you guys have to go to court to adjudicate an issue?
Virtually never.
Okay. And do you think you have adequate funding in order to carry out your duties? You have enough staff with your workload?
Alderman, as everyone, and I've listened to several of the departments that have presented, as every department will tell you is, we'll do what we need to do. Obviously, everybody would like more funding to support their efforts. We are down to 1 investigator versus 2 years ago when we had 3, which sort of does 2 things. And number 1, part of this is process. We sort of have to do a pre-investigation to see if we have jurisdiction, whether it be, are they in the city? And they don't have to be a city resident. The incident had to take place in the city. Or does it fit other things under one of our ordinances? So we have to do a little bit of a pre-investigation. Then if they sign the form that says, yes, I believe I've been discriminated and it's in our jurisdiction, then we can move forward.
Out of curiosity, I remember when I became an alderman 18 years ago, it was the first time I ever heard of a civil rights enforcement agency. How do people know that you exist and that you can actually help them without potentially hiring a lawyer because they've been discriminated against? How do they know about you, the public?
We try to do a lot of outreach. As I said, we go to ward, neighborhood meetings. We do flyers. We're getting ready to send out about 400 due to the passage of and signing into law of the Hair Act, or the Crown Act. We're going to send out about 350 to 400 letters to the barbershops, beauty shops, hair salons, etc., letting them know that the Crown Act has been signed. And we're also adding ban the box, because we know that a lot of folks may get their hair done and not know the ban the box exists. So we're going to send out those letters. We try to let people know as best we can.
And let me ask you this. Have you ever done PSAs where you ran on the radio or on television about, your services?
We did radio, I want to say 2 to 2.5 years ago. It's sort of hit and miss. It's like, I don't know you exist until I need you. And then where did that phone number go? Where did that email go? So we would like to do that again. Again, funding is limited for that. We'd like to do those types of 15-second to 30-second PSAs talking about especially employment, but also reminding people of fair housing.
Okay. Well, thank you for all the work that you do in Civil Rights Enforcement Agency, Charles.
Thank you, Alderman.
No further questions.
All right. Alderman Vaccaro.
Yeah, Charles, I'll go back to, because I said on that, without an attorney, CREA is extremely limited. CREA needs its own attorney. I'm going to bring that back up in an ordinance again this year, because without an attorney, let's just say me and Jeffrey get into a fight and Jeffrey feels I violated his civil rights. The same attorney upstairs that is going to prosecute is the same attorneys that are going to defend. So that means everybody at City Hall that works for the city, the same attorney that's going to prosecute or look into the problem is also the same attorney that's going to defend the problem. It's not right. And I wanted to do this 2 years ago, and you said, "Oh no, we don't need one," which I absolutely disagree with. We're going to argue about that again. But without an attorney, CREA has no real authority to put something in court. CREA could have sued on many things that went on where other people and other organizations could not have, on incidents that happened in the city. Without an attorney, it's not going to happen. An independent attorney. But I'm going to deal with it this year again. We're going to try. But I know where Alderman Boyd was going with this. And
Alderman, let me remind you 2 things. One is Mayor Jones put in the board bill $500,000 for attorneys,
right,
that are specifically hired by the city council's office that go directly to CREA.
But they need to be hired separately from the city.
Well, the other thing is, by ordinance, they can't be. There's an ordinance, and I can look that up for you, that every legal entity in the city, whether they work for health department, human service, must be hired by the city councilor's office.
Well, we have to change that ordinance too, because CREA needs to be independent of the city. CREA needs to be an organization, which is a civil rights enforcement organization, not the city. We can go round and round, but without its own independent attorney, which it becomes a big issue. And I'm sure this is part of what, I'm going into a meeting in the mayor's office in a few minutes, because my board bills are trying to make this, as well as the oversight for the jail and the police, I'd like to have that deal where my group is the prosecutor and I'd never have to lose any money. I'd be like, yeah, well, okay, well, you lose. It has to be independent. And we need to then change the ordinance that gives CREA the ability to have its own independent attorney. separate from the city. It can't be under the city council. We have to fix that. But anyway, that's always been just something that's bugged me. And when you got the city attorney dictating to you, oh, well, no, you can't, no, we don't want to do that one. It might cost us money. Well, it really shouldn't get involved if it's a city employee, whether it's police or fire or something. Yeah, man, we probably shouldn't sue on that because you're suing the city. So now you got the same people that you're suing, which is the city, defending the city. And I'm sure the city's attorney's office is not going to say, well, yeah, let's sue for millions of dollars that the city's got to pay. They're going to be like, well, no, we shouldn't do that. It's very important that CREA has an independent, and again, I've never seen where you have the same group defending and prosecuting. It's a heck of a great deal because you'll never lose a lawsuit. That's for sure. If the city's defending anyway, I'm sorry. We're going to fix this. But anyway, thanks, Charles. And I will move on from that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alderman.
All right, sir. Alderwoman Howard.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also don't have any questions. I just wanted to thank Charles for your service and your positivity and engagement in social media and in person, and coming to meetings and getting involved with the community.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
Thank you. Alderwoman Boyd.
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Muhammad. Okay. Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions for Mr. Bryson. Thank you for your service, sir, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Alderman.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Morning. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you, Charles, for being here. I just have one quick question because I want to make sure that I heard this right when I was hopping on. You were talking about the budget is significantly less of what was requested, and that was because of something that happened in 2018. We didn't get funds that we normally get. Did I hear that right?
We, due to the HUD suspension of our contract, we lost funding not only for a position or a position and a half, I believe, but also lost funding for training dollars as well as some administrative costs as well.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought I heard. I just wanted to make sure. And that was is that related to this what happened at the state level?
Board
Correct?
Bill,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Senate Bill 48. Yes.
Right. Okay.
43.
All right. So in order for that to get rectified, something's got to happen at the state.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for all that you do. I appreciate it. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
Thank you. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions.
Okay. Alderwoman Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions. I just like to thank Mr. Bryson for his services and all that he does.
Thank you, Alderwoman.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I do want to comment that, Charles, you have a wealth of knowledge about how the city operates as a whole. And that's very significant and valuable to the position that you have now, because you understand a lot more when people come in the door that someone totally new to city government would not have. Also, understanding that this department is here for everyone. And I just want to see us have the ability to make it more public. And we want to help do that. If nothing else, if we make sure all of our neighborhood associations publishes it on their email systems or in their newsletters, I think that's another good way to get it out as well. So we'll talk about it later on. But again, thank you for what you do. Did you have anything else you wanted to share with us?
No, ma'am. Just thank you for the opportunity to present this morning.
All right. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
So we finished a little early. Our next presenter is not due until 10 a.m. So what I would like to ask the clerk to do is to have
Madam Chair, I think if it's affordable housing, they're here.
Well, I
That's
saw-
Loretta.
They were on. Bill
They-
Rothhaus was on. I don't know if he's up.
They were here. I don't know if I just thought I'd let you know.
I see
Yeah,
Loretta.
I saw earlier that they were on, but I know she had 3 people listed to speak, and all 3 of them were not on.
Oh, okay.
So, can we ask the director, April Ford Griffin, if she could start earlier, if she could start at 9:30, please?
Yes, ma'am. I'll contact her now.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And somebody on the committee that has Alderman Muhammad's number, because 2 of these he asked for, and I want to make sure he has the opportunity to listen.
I'll give him a call right now.
Thank you so much.
It's his birthday. He might be.
You know, I forgot that it is his birthday.
But I don't think that's not why he's not on. He
Oh,
might.
no. But
Yeah.
I needed to remember that it's his birthday. All of us Geminis got to stick together.
Gemini, see, if you waited to the end of the month, you could have been a Cancer like me.
No.
Let me give him a call. Shit. So will you get here at all?
Joe, you might want to turn your mic off.
Alderman Vaccaro?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm here.
So I know that I know you're about to leave.
But I'm sent John a text.
Okay, that's fine.
Chairwoman Davis,
Yes.
I did speak with Ms. Griffin, and she will be jumping on at 9:30.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I have a text into John. He hasn't responded yet.
Okay.
And you're right. I'm gonna have to jump off.
Well, I thank you very much for helping us out there. Hopefully he'll have a chance to get on.
I hope so. That's the bad thing about these. Sometimes people have trouble getting with their computers, and it really gets hard to get on.
Oh, I know I experienced it as well. I do understand. So as we prepare for our next presenter, I would like to make sure that everybody really asks a lot of questions because, as you know, we are very focused in the city of St. Louis on affordable housing and many ways to most especially help our homeless population. So I see that we have before us our Executive Director of Affordable Housing Commission and April Ford Griffin. If you are ready, please get started.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman.
Good
Is my
morning.
volume good?
It's perfect.
Okay, awesome. Good morning, committee members and all other aldermen and staff that's on here. We're happy to join this morning. I have with me Loretta Heiner, who's our senior housing analyst. If there's any questions that I need her to jump in on. I did plan to have my account clerk, Paula Turner, but got a call very early this morning. She had to go to the emergency room. She wasn't feeling well, got some type of health condition. So, but I think we will be fine. I will go ahead and jump in. I would just like to add, I heard you, Alderwoman, say to ask lots of questions. Don't ask any questions that we don't have the answers for, though. Okay. But
I'm good. You know, I got to get you back real quick.
Yes.
You have the answers as a former alderperson, as one who has been involved in community along with your entire family for years. You've got the answers. So
well,
we won't give you a break.
Yes. And if we don't, we will get them to you because once again, we know that oftentimes in these hearings, there may be some information that people are interested in asking or knowing that's not on this sheet of the budget. So starting with the budget, and I really won't spend a lot of time on the budget itself unless there are particular questions, is more so an overview because our budget pretty much stays the same. The line item that changes significantly from year to year is the housing subsidy assistance line item. And so outside of our personal services, which is our staff, we are a small department. We have 5 staff members. I'm currently in the process of interviewing for one of the positions. And so, as I said, we have a small staff. Each position has a unique set of functions. But being a small team, we are very good at jumping in and helping out one another and making up whatever needs to be done when someone else is out. And so our materials and supplies are pretty basic. From year to year, they pretty much stay the same. In previous years, some items you will see, such as, say, communications, under materials and supplies, where it says 0 spent. And so generally each year, we don't know what we may need to spend in that category, but we will put about $1,000 there. And with the trust fund, all of our funding that is unspent remains in our trust fund, including interest. And so we will once again be able to continue to use the monies in future years. Our rental and capital leases, that pretty much is the copier that we lease, and any equipment that we lease is through the city's department, the supply department that does the procurement, and we have to go with the companies that they select. And so that is pretty much already established for us. We do pay a lease here to SLDC. You will see in the land and buildings line item, it has remained pretty much the same. There is a slight increase And that is because this is the 11th year, and in our agreement, we will have an increase in our rent on the 11th, starting the 11th year. It's a small increase. It goes up about a little less than $1,100. And so the city does own this building, but they are still paying back the revenues that were obtained to acquire the building. And so all of the city departments in here pay a lease. And so the other items as we go down, as I stated before, pretty much stay the same. General communications, supplies for training, for our funding round we have each year, or internal services, or the services that generally we receive a bill, and it includes a breakdown of cost to us for using city councilor services, for payroll, for the comptroller, for the auditing division, mail services, multi-draft services internally. So each department receives their bill, and that's about the cost of ours. For professional services, we in the past have used that for advertising our funding round in the newspapers, our annual reports that we put out and print each year. As I said, the biggest sum of our total budget you will find in the subsidy assistance. And that is what gets awarded out. And so there is no breakdown that you ever see in our budget, because we won't award those until the following January. Every year in September, we open up a competitive funding round through a RFP process, and that remains open for 7 weeks. After it's closed, we evaluate those applications and proposals, and we come up with staff recommendations, and we look at a number of things to really make that determination. Within those proposals, that applications, they are justifying their proposals, they're showing their capacity, their track record. We're looking at their history with us. We do perform monitoring. We do desk audits pretty much monthly as we receive requests for payments. Since all of our payments have been reimbursed, and so they spend the money first and then they send the bills to us, we have to go through those for compliance, make sure that anything that needs to be reconciled is, and before we send a request to the comptrollers for a payment. On the program operations, we have a specialist that does site visits, that does monitoring of their required reports that they turn in quarterly and at the end of each program year. And so we also perform audits through the comptroller's auditing division on the agencies that we fund. About once every 2 to 3 years, they are audited, as well as they will receive a monitoring visit from the staff. And so it's a lot of compliance that we do throughout the year. And on the housing development side, or housing analyst is following and managing the process of the construction projects that are awarded from start to finish, or housing development projects that are awarded, or loans. Most of them are loans, some are forgivable, some are not. So we also have a pretty nice size loan portfolio that has to be managed, because our loans are mostly 0 interest, 1% interest, anywhere from 25 to 55 years. So they're very long-term loans that we will have to manage those portfolios over the course of time. As you know, in the ordinance that established this department through a grassroots effort of housing advocates who started a number of years before we were actually established, going around and attending other cities and conferences that had affordable housing trust funds. And they went out, they got the voters to support it. They pulled together a large coalition of bankers, housing advocates, advocates for people who were disabled, on and on. It was, like I said, a pretty large group that came together and then met with the elected officials, the mayor's office, finally through negotiations, was able to establish a compromise to create this local use tax, which then created the fund that we are established to administer, which is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And so this is why you have seen a lot of participation from the community. And I would say probably the last 5 years, it has increased with attending and making public comments, submitting letters to ENA as well as to the Board of Aldermen, asking for our funds to be increased. Once again, because as this whole effort started out, it was to create a fund for making sure that we are addressing the crisis in affordable housing services and units. And regardless of what financial crisis the city has, that there will always be a fund that would be stable and established to fund an entity such as ours. And so over the years, starting out, we received significantly more funds as time has gone on. Some years it has been under the mandated minimum of 5 million. Some years it has been a little more. Last year, we did have an increase through the ENA board meeting where it was increased to 6 million, a little more than 6 million. And then the Ways and Means Committee, there was a reduction of $1 million, and then it was replaced with $1 million in the CARES COVID block grant money. We did not receive any of that money. That money is still at CDA. The money will remain at CDA. That is block grant money, which is very different from affordable housing trust funds, which comes from the local use tax. That money has more regulations from the federal government, which then also can add on to the cost of the projects and the time. Fortunately, after several months and putting together some reports for CDA to submit to HUD, there was a report submitted to HUD that was finally accepted to say that several projects that we recommended at the Affordable Housing Commission to be funded with the it ended up being 1.5 million of the COVID block grant funds, that they were accepted. And so now we have turned over the applications and evaluations, all the budgets and information for those projects to CDA and asked that they would move very expediently with those developers who have secured loans for these projects. All of those projects received the very valuable and much sought after MHDC tax credits. And so it's very important that those projects move forward. And so those developers have been waiting patiently. I've been talking to them. CDA has been in communication with them. So I feel confident that they will move forward now with CDA. I do hope, it is my hope and ask that that would not be done again, because for one, the fund has always performed very well, regardless of some of the other losses. Even now is $41 million were generated in the special trust fund. And so, like I said, sometimes when we try to replace funds from another place, it's not a one-on-one replacement in many ways. And so we do know that in E&A again this year, the mayor and the comptroller supported our funding being increased from 5 million to 6 million. And so only thing I would say is that we definitely need the money. It is a critical time. I think COVID has exposed a lot of that, but many of us, and certainly the aldermen who have to get the calls and hear the issues every day, you're expected to be able to solve problems that many of them don't lie directly in your control. And so we certainly understand that the need is there for affordable housing, but we also, much of what we do is support services, all of which support residents throughout the city. And so once again, when we receive our funding and we make our awards, I have been awarding all the funds that we have. And so there are always projects of good quality that don't get funded. And so, you know, the more funding we have, quite naturally, the more projects and services that will be able to be put out on the street, happening in the communities, as well as get started on housing developments, which don't happen as quickly as services. They may take from a year to 2 years before the shovel actually goes in the ground, sometimes a little longer. You have so many pieces that have to come together and all at the right time to be able to get the project started. And so we try to pay close attention to the progress, as well as if a project has, since the time when they made an application to us, has lost some of the funding that they originally had commitments for. And then we move swiftly to make sure that if the project is not going to be able to happen, that we recapture those funds so that they can be used on some other projects. And so with the need being great, we don't like to have money just sitting that is not going to be put to use as soon as we possibly can. And so at the same time, we have to operate within all of the city's rules, the charter, the regulations, the procedures from different departments. So we work closely through the comptrollers, the city councilors, all the other departments, the license collector, collector revenue. We have to go through all the same processes as others to be able to get contracts established and approved to be able to actually get dollars to the nonprofits. And so that is a process, but it's okay because that's just part of the cost of trying to help people. And so we are very passionate about that. And Madam Chair, I will stop with that and take questions.
Thank you very much. Let's start with our committee members. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro had to leave for a moment. Alderwoman Howard.
No, I just would like to say thank you, Ms. Griffin. You do remarkable work, and I imagine that the need, I know the need is great. We've been waiting for a project here in the 14th for a while, and hopefully this next time, fingers crossed, we will be breaking ground soon. So, like you said, you put these packages together and hopefully they get, funded and are able to break ground before they lose the previous funding. So hopefully this will all come together. This is remarkable. And I guess that the thing I would like to know is, I know you aren't on the ground, you're the oversight, you're the funder. And the need is great for the homeless to get them off the streets. And I just hope that we could find some way to encourage people to avail themselves to the services we have. And I know, like I said, you're not on the ground with this. You're the wallet. So I appreciate all you do, and hopefully on this, when we get more funds, we can increase what we're doing in the city and move forward and bring more people into housing. Thank you.
Thank
Right,
you.
thank you.
Alderwoman, I would just like to add that currently, in the homeless issue is very important to us. While that is not our sole mission, but it is significantly part of our mission. So about 3/4 of our funds each year go to services for affordable housing, trying to help people attain housing, as well as trying to assess programs that assess their conditions and whether they need IDs in order to get them into some type of permanent housing or supportive housing, whether it's emergency shelters. We help fund transitional housing, housing for domestic abuse victims. So a lot of our funds do serve homeless, and that has been established by the ordinance. 40% of our funds must serve individuals who are 20% or below. And so most often that is the homeless. And so we also work with DHS on with various agencies that receive federal dollars to provide services for the unhoused, and those federal dollars require a match. So on some of those entities, we are able to be that match. And so there is a lot of money that's spent on homeless, as well as those who are anywhere 80% and below. The AMI is 80% and below. So they would be considered low income residents, low to moderate income residents as well, is who we serve. And so that is significant. Unfortunately, a lot of times we talk about the need to eliminate homelessness and reduce it. We are providing services. DHS provides a lot of funds to the unhoused and homeless. The real issue is, and we continue to do that work, but you can't eliminate it because the population continues to be developed, meaning as long as there are in our society conditions that create poverty, you are going to continue to have new people coming into poverty. So as long as we know that our graduation rates are low, as long as unemployment is high, as long as we don't have the places that we need to provide all of our services for retail, and we have to spend our dollars other places, jobs are limited in the high poverty areas and crime is high. So all of these various conditions that lead more people into that pipeline of poverty will continue to always be a need to have these services. Yes, we are helping people, we are improving the quality of their lives, but then you have more people who are coming into this situation. And so we really have to just continue to address the issues, and we have been tasked with dealing with those who are the most vulnerable. So all we do serve are people who are very low income and to moderately income.
But there are several success stories, and even in my in my ward, I've had several Habitat for Humanity homes built, and it's just good to see these people moving along, moving up, in the socioeconomic realm, and having their own home to raise their children in. It's a wonderful program that you do. It's just, like you said, the need is great, and we will continue to have the need as long as these things are addressed. And I don't know the answer to finally ending it, but hopefully people will avail themselves to what's available and we can continue to help them rise above and get out of that cycle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Director Griffin. I don't have any questions. I really appreciate the details of all the funding sources and all the work that you're doing, and echo the gratitude that the Alderwoman from the 14th
Thank you.
stated. Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you for your support.
Right. Alderwoman Pam Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director, for coming before us. I don't have any, the chair kind of put us all in a bad situation because she know we won't have questions because you're very, very, very thorough. Did I say very thorough? And so you have really, you have added stuff that I wasn't aware that you all were doing. And so I applaud you for what you're doing. And I can speak firsthand on how you work with everybody to try to ensure citywide how services are being done and affordable housing is being throughout our city. So thank you so much. And I feel that you being an older person, you can relate to us as older people and our needs and what we're dealing with. So thank you for your help and thank you for your thorough presentation.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. I never saw Alderman Muhammad come in. So Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Griffin, for being here. Quick question, and you may have covered it and I missed it, but if not, if you could give an approximation. The funds utilized from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund into affordable housing projects, are they often just a piece of the overall capital stack and financing of these projects, or do they solely cover kind of the financing cost of a particular affordable housing project?
No, absolutely, just a very small piece. We don't receive enough funds to be able to fund a project. As you know, with construction, a project of a significant size, they can be from 10 to 15 million dollars. And so we may contribute 300,000. So it is generally a very small fill of the gap, but it is necessary because it helps to get them what they need to complete their financing. So most of the developments that come to us have applied for MHDC tax credits. They may have applied for CDA funding, but they also all have private loans that's necessary, and they're ready to go. And we do require them to be shovel ready. We leverage our funds right now for housing developments. Our record is about, for every dollar we spend, we've leveraged a little more than $18 for a development project.
So that was my question.
Outside finance.
How much are we leveraging? Because I mean, I think everyone on the committee can appreciate that the affordable housing financing is complicated and it does create a lot of gaps in the capital stack and the financing. So 18 to 1 is what we're leveraging with the affordable. That is fantastic. Okay, that was really what I wanted to get to, and I appreciate you answering that question. I have no further questions.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir. Alderwoman Navarro.
Great, thank you, and good morning, April. Good to see you again.
Good morning.
Thank you for your very thorough presentation. I appreciated you walking us through this. Even though there aren't a lot of changes, it's very helpful to all of us to be able to understand all the great work that you're doing. One thing that I've just been thinking a lot about is how we can be more proactive and kind of comprehensive as a city when it comes to affordable housing, and I've seen other cities do this, and I think about this in terms of, as we build up the brick line, our greenways, or as the property around our parks becomes, as those values go up, how can we be more proactive in maintaining affordable housing options? And I know what some other cities spend on affordable housing, but I'm just curious if you know how our budget for affordable housing compares to other cities of similar size?
No, I don't, because not all cities, so it would take just looking at the cities who have an affordable housing trust fund. And so I don't know. I'm not sure. But in terms of, I agree, with the looking as a city comprehensively as to where our affordable housing units are and where we might need them. And that is the purpose of a plan that should be underway. I know it had started and COVID stopped it. The members here who are also on HUD would be familiar with, you commissioned a study on affordable housing for this very reason, I think assessment, but then also recommendations. RISE was contracted with, this is through CDA. And so also CDA is generally where you have your 5-year plan put together that's submitted to HUD. That's a strategy for the city as a whole. We submit some data and information that they ask us for that goes into a report and as part of that plan. And then the Don Rowe, who's the planning director with the planning department, that's their role to work with the aldermen. I think there are now plans for every neighborhood or every ward. And they also were the ones who were the lead on the MVA study through HUD. So a lot of that is done over in planning. And then those plans you are able to comment on at the planning commission meetings and so forth through HUD meetings. And so when we receive proposals, once again, since we are a small entity, and the way that the city has structured it really is with your planning department who's working with the alderman, neighborhood groups, CDA who gets HUD funds to help on affordable housing as well. And then we also come in as part of that. So the proposals we receive, those proposals are required to, the developers have partnered with a neighborhood community group. So to make sure that people in the area are aware and there's a consensus for it, support letters from the aldermen, from the, oftentimes they can submit from the mayor, congressman, state reps, so on and so forth. But the aldermen are aware, the community is aware. And so that helps ensure that there is an awareness and a consensus that these projects are supported and that if they receive funding, they're going to be able to go forward. And so that has been the structure that the city has had as far as being proactive. And more recently, I think that was 2 years ago now, maybe, that the plan was commissioned in 2019. COVID slowed it down because there's supposed to be community meetings. I can't give you a lot of details because I was involved in some of the meetings. We were supposed to meet internally, but I haven't gotten a notice about a meeting in a long time. But as that has come back up recently, I have been told that RISE is still working on it. I know I gave them, through our housing analysts, a lot of information, all of our data since we started, make sure they can map out and know where all the projects are that we know of and have participated in. And so we're waiting to see where that will pick up, where we can start being involved in the meetings, help to shape the recommendations, so that then as a city, you have this assessment, but also a plan. But you also, I think, still want to leave room, and I know you're not saying not, but I always think the whole planning at the neighborhood level and ward level is important. And then have developers that they've started there before they come to us.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So what you're saying is, in addition to getting letters of support from the community, there's the application process with your office also considers any sort of planning effort that's already happened. Okay, and I see Loretta shaking her head yes too there.
Yes.
Okay, great. That's wonderful to know. And I know that we do need more resources in our planning department. I don't know how many neighborhoods have plans for us to rely on, or how often that they get updated, but that's really great to hear. So thank you very much. I really
you.
thank you for everything that you're all doing. It's so important, especially now.
Thanks for your support.
Okay. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Griffin. I have no questions.
All right. Alderwoman Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Director Griffin. I have no questions. I just want to give thanks for the role that you play in affordable housing. I have seen affordable housing within my ward and look forward to the future projects that you have that are on the books. And again, thanks for all that you do in making this happen.
Thanks for your support.
All right. I did see Alderwoman Ingracia. Did you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you, April. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Rice left. Okay, so I wanted to just go back, Director Griffin, and ask if you could just give us a little bit more information on the supportive services that you do fund for affordable housing, because I don't think a lot of people realize how significant it is and how much is needed, because I want to see more. We have a lot of units out here, but they don't necessarily have social services in those units to support the people who live there.
Sure. I'd be happy to. And that is very necessary, more permanent supportive units where you have the support to really be able to help the individuals who have various issues. And one thing we know is people who have found themselves in a homeless situation or unhoused, as we call them, or even just in poverty. It's not just one issue, the issues are layered. So it's very important to create housing that has on-site services supported for them, even if it's, where to refer them and follow up and see if they have insurance they need, if they're taking medicine, do they need a chore worker to come in, those sort of things. And those are a little more expensive, not it all depends on how you compare the two, but it's still reasonable. But we do have developments we've supported with permanent support services, but there definitely is a need for more. And so on the investment and the impact of the development projects that have been invested in since we were established, we have invested in 43 for sale projects. Which has generated 221 for sale units. On the rental developments, we have 71 projects that we funded, and that has resulted in 1,781 rental units that are affordable. And I spoke about earlier that for every dollar that we've invested, the return on our investment has been $18.55. So we've awarded a total of $34,446,955,000 thus far. And the total cost of those projects was $673,565,620. So that's been a significant amount of money for the funds we received. We feel good that we've been able to pick some quality projects, receive quality projects, and move forward. And if we see that we gave someone an opportunity and things crumbled, we moved quickly to get others the funding. On the services side, Madam Chairman, to give an idea of the scope, we have invested a total of $76,792,775 into services for affordable housing since we have been established. Those services include things such as accessible modification, education and counseling, education, training, rental and mortgage assistance, utility assistance, neighborhood stabilization programs, home repair programs, lead abatement programs, homeless prevention, which is shelters, can be transitional houses, and it can be scattered, some or all at one location. Some locations, we don't even know the address because these are oftentimes women who have experienced and been victims of some type of domestic abuse. And so that's to say that they are scattered. And we do have maps of where housing projects for sale and rental have been done. And with our services, we know that they are all throughout the city. We also provide some, as I said, traditional, transitional housing, and we have some foreclosure prevention projects that we fund as well.
Well, that's the part I needed other people to know about, because it's not just the brick and mortar unit, but you have to also make sure you take care of the people, most especially so that they can become stable, but prayerfully they have an opportunity to transform, transcend into a better situation, a better quality of life with all those services provided for them as well.
And I can add, Madam Chairman, that even I generalize that in saying the shelters, which are emergency shelters, some are temporary, some are more long-term. But within those type of facilities, we do provide the funds for meals. We provide funds for transportation for the caseworkers so they can assess them and they can get them to the various services that they need so that they can see how rapidly they can get them into some more permanent type of housing living situation. And so we also pay for staff. And so that creates jobs as well. So we are also funding jobs at these local nonprofits. On our developments, we do have requirements that living wages are being paid. We are through SLDC's agency that monitors for compliance of minority participation. So all of the requirements that the city, whether it's through the board of aldermen, through the administration, have put in place to have a certain percentage of goals for minority participation, for local participation, we require that those that receive our funding are in compliance with all of your guidelines as well.
I agree. And just one more thing, and you know why I'm doing this, because I'm so passionate about affordable housing. And I've been not only on the construction side, management side, and now as a legislator, it's just critical. But one of the other things that I think we overlook in this process, but I know you haven't since you've been director, is doing some out of the box kind of programming to assist getting people, just getting them to the door of wanting and accepting the affordable housing. And so I do know that we have some agencies that go out and try to find people as the people come through their systems for other things, introduce them to programming and housing opportunities. And so I really appreciate that.
Madam Chair, if I could say again, you are absolutely correct the wonderful thing that I have found coming from being an alderman that spent a lot of time on focused on getting development in the ward, as well as businesses and services, but having to work through with the developers, the processes that HUD requires through CDA and some other entities, that it just makes it at times complicated, more complicated. But the one thing I found very wonderful here is that these funds don't have those regulations. So these funds are very critical because the source itself allows us to have that eye to be able to say, okay, you don't have to be a large developer to receive support here. You don't have to be part of the developers who historically have continued to be able to receive funding from the city. You can have an idea that is out of the box, out of the norm, but we still are able to judge you and look at the merits of the project and the need and make a decision. Now, sometimes I will say, because we have chosen a smaller entity, that maybe it was harder for them to fulfill some of the inspections that are required. We don't just let you come in and just, okay, go do your thing, and you don't have to follow the city's guidelines on reporting and insurance and audits. You still have to follow that. We still are going to make sure that we hold you accountable for every penny that you spend of ours, and we follow the guidelines and standard practices for accounting and state and federal and city regulations. So sometimes someone might have a great idea, but when it came down to it, they didn't have the capacity on the administration of the funding. In those cases, we try to work with them, but sometimes if they just don't have the ability, and then that's a project, we thank them, and those funds remain with us, and we go on to utilize those funds for other services or projects. But we don't have to tell them no, because right off of the start of receiving the proposal, because they weren't able to fit into a box that has been established by HUD. And so that has made it very nice to be able to have that flexibility to be more creative in the way we're able to get projects done that the community needs.
I totally agree. Madam Clerk, could you please contact the next presenters and ask them if they would be available to start at 10:30?
Will do.
Thank you. I saw that Alderwoman Rice joined us. Alderwoman Rice, did you have any questions you wanted to ask?
I can't hear her.
You're muted.
Oh.
I think she's having trouble there. Okay. Okay, she's setting up her headset.
Yeah.
And she said, sorry, no questions. Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, I want to thank you so very much. And did you like to wrap up with anything?
I would just like to thank the aldermen for their support of the projects that their residents and the developers bring. Many people don't know that the aldermen really have to work hard and do a lot of hands-on with developers to find out all of the pros and cons to the projects that they bring to them before they even oftentimes take it to the community. So I know that once we receive it, there's been a lot that's gone into it. And so I just appreciate the work that everyone does and the passion that the aldermen possess to want more services and projects in their ward, and just say that, we're committed to see it through and to do our best to have as much work happen on affordable housing construction, as well as rehab, as well as services and addressing the homeless issue as we possibly have the resources to do, and to be accountable for what you trust us with.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. I thank you for all that you do, and I thank you for coming before us today. And most especially, you gave a wonderful tutorial. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Committee members, I would like to say to you, if you like, we could take a 10-minute recess so that we can get started with the next group at 10:30.
Chairwoman, he is actually on here if you're ready.
Really? Oh, this is just marvelous. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. Where am I at? So, our next presenter is the Community Development Agency, and Mr. Bill Rata is going to make the presentation, and he will introduce any other members of the staff and have them join in as necessary. Mr. Rata, please move forward.
Good morning,
Morning.
committee members and Madam Chairwoman. Thank you for the opportunity for us to present today. I am Bill Rott. I'm the Director of Housing here at the Community Development Administration. And Brian Yakum, our Fiscal Manager, is on the call as well. And just a little bit of background about CDA. We are entirely part another difference that we may have from a lot of departments is we are actually on a calendar year here as opposed to a fiscal year. And a minimum of 70% of our block grant funds and 100% of our home funds, which are on the budget pages that you all have before you, have to be used for activities that benefit low to moderate income populations. And we've actually done a lot better than that over the past 3 years. Our average is at 88% of the block grant expenditures have been spent on low to moderate income activities. And we do have some constraints with our budget with HUD. There's a 20% administrative cap on block grant funds, and there's a 10% administrative cap on home funds. And we are always under those caps. We never have an issue with that. We do have 33 staff members right now here at CDA. And another cap that we have is a public services cap. So 19% of our block grant allocation can go towards public service activities. So those include things like daycares, food pantries, after school programs, crime prevention, reentry programs, things like that. And we get a lot of applications every year for those programs, but we are actually capped by HUD at that percentage. So our annual budgeting process is done through an action plan that we have to submit to HUD each year on November 15th. And that process involves us soliciting proposals from the community for various projects and programs that they would like to receive funding for. We have a pretty robust citizen participation plan with public hearings. We do pre-application workshops to help organizations that may have never applied for block grant funding before to know what's expected and how to turn in an application. Once we rated the proposals and made our recommendations, those go to you all through a board bill through the HUD's committee that's voted on by the board, and then of course approval by E&A. A couple of things that you might have noticed in our budget numbers is that we did receive an increase of about $350,000, which is roughly a 2% increase in block grant, and about a $35,000 increase, which is about 1% more in our home funds than in 2021 than in 2020. And our action plan has a mechanism for that. So any increases or decreases are taken out of our housing production program. And then in our FY22 budget that you have before you, the increase in the salary line item accounts for several newly filled positions, as well as the 3% merit increases that all city employees are receiving. So I know that was pretty quick, but I will be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Okay, I think that's the best way to do it. Alderman Boyd. Oh, he did leave.
Yes, I want to say, thank you to Bill Rothschild, who has provided exceptional services while working at CDA. I appreciate all the hard work that they do. Don't have a whole lot of questions, just, want to ask them to keep up the good work. As chairman of HUDs, I look forward to working closely to figure out how we can, secure more funding and get more housing production going in the city of St. Louis.
Thank you. Yeah, we look forward to that, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Okay. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Vaccaro not back yet. Alderwoman Howard.
I just want to thank Mr. Rataj for all he does and being very hands-on in the administration of the healthy home repair issues, and I guess currently in his position at CDA. So we appreciate him, and I think that we would like to expand the housing availability, affordable housing in the city, and bring more people here. So thank you very much, and that's all I have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman Spencer. Oh, that's right. She told me she left us. Alderwoman Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Bill. I'm still trying to get clarity in regards to CDA, because it always was a hidden jewel to me that I never could understand. And I know at one time, it was RFPs and people were applying, and then I didn't hear anything. And so I was just trying to get clarity to have a clear understanding in regards, like the process, like affordable housing. They kind of walked us through the processes, how people applied, how the RFPs are done. But I'm just on shaky grounds because I don't understand that part. And so how do you pick non-for-profits to get the dollars? Is it a scoring scale that they do? How do we compare with other cities that does HUD's funding? So that's my whole confusion. I don't think it's anything with you all. You know what you're doing. I just don't understand it.
Certainly. First, I'd be happy to sit down with you if you want an in-depth, description of what we do, and, be happy to answer any questions that you have. I will say we do have two processes for funding. We have what we call our non-housing RFP that will come out later this summer, probably in July. A notice will be sent out about it. All the aldermen and women are on a email notification list. So we have it's about 600 plus people right now. So as soon as we make any sort of announcement, we know that everybody is made aware of that through the email. And as part of that process, I mentioned earlier, or before that process starts, we actually hold some workshops and kind of say these are the funding priorities that have been established through the action plan. And, we're soliciting proposals for funding from these categories. And once those proposals come in, they are rated by a team of community development professionals here at CDA. And then funding recommendations are made based on those proposals. So there is a scoring system. All the applicants are kind of what we say are given the answers to the test, and that our scoring criteria is part of the application, so they can see what is being asked, how you could score if you meet certain categories for funding. So it gives them an idea. One thing we do offer, though, too, is for applicants who may not receive funding, we do offer them an opportunity for a debriefing so that we can, meet with them, go over their application, and get them in a better position to receive funding the next time we have that available. So that is on an annual basis, the non-housing RFP. And then we have what we call a NOFA, Notice of Funding Availability process for our housing production projects. And for those, again, we offer workshops for developers ahead of the NOFA actually being released. So again, they can gain insight on what we're looking for, what we expect, what HUD expects, the different requirements and challenges. We also have some developers who have gotten funding before speak and kind of talk about the pitfalls and the challenges of the process and working with federal funds. So it gives some new applicants some ideas of things they might need to be aware of and kind of look out for, and it gives them some really good insight on working with these federally funded projects. And those proposals are also rated by a team of housing development finance professionals here at CDA. And again, we give the answers to the test by having the rating criteria front and center. And I know that's a kind of quick overview, but again, I'd be happy to sit down with you and discuss it more in depth if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
Where am I at here? Oh, Alderman Oldenburg.
You know this scene all too well. Toys everywhere, lots of noises coming from them, and something always needing a battery. Well, one mom took it upon herself.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Noise without noise. That's the concept.
Alderwoman Navarro.
It's kind of a passion that we didn't know we had. So
Madam Chairwoman, is anybody else getting some background
Yeah,
noise?
somebody needs to mute.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple of questions, and thanks for that overview. One, we just were hearing about the study for the affordable housing, which I think the Director Ford Griffin was saying was coming out of CDA. Do you have an update on where that stands? It sounds like COVID kind of put a halt to some of those community meetings, but I'm just curious if you can give us an update.
Yeah, it certainly has. It's set them back. So we had just reached out to them. They're talking about engaging in the next 30 to 60 days. So those meetings should be starting back up.
Okay, great. And what was the source of funding for that study?
So we actually use block grant funding for that.
Okay. Thank you. And then I have just a question. I'm just looking at some notes here about, looks like we're on the 8th year of the Healthy Home Repair Program. Does that sound right?
The 8th year of the centralized Healthy Home Repair Program.
Okay. And I'm looking at something here that says let's see, there have been 138 loans worth approximately $1.5 million through those CDBG home funds. And I'm just curious because I know a lot of us refer people to the Healthy Home Repair Program, and it seems like it takes a long time. What's the current caseload, or can you tell us what the backlog looks like there?
Yeah, and those numbers last year were down dramatically because of COVID. Normally we do double or more than that. So just to give you a little context there. Right now, I'm looking at a report. We have a waiting list, it's a citywide waiting list of about, it's actually 998 people, which it was a lot higher. So we've worked that down really well. COVID set us back on that as well. So we would be probably closer to 400 or 500 people on the waiting list. Just for some context, when we took it over, there were over 3,600 people on the waiting list citywide. So we have made a lot of headway in working that down. And we have currently 145 projects right now that are active in the pipeline. Those are all in various stages. Some haven't quite completed their application yet. They're missing a few documents. Others are out for bid. Some are waiting for the inspections. And some are just waiting for the people to come in and sign the paperwork and close the loans.
And that's all federal funds for that program?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other sources of funding? Are there any other grants out there that we could be going after? I mean, I have a hard time telling people to even apply, knowing that, you know, there's hundreds of people on the waiting list.
Yeah, so a couple things. One, you know, HUD set the rules for the program, and it's primarily a first come, first serve program. However, they will allow us to help somebody that has an urgent situation. And what they've defined, there's about half a dozen things. A leaking roof is one of those things. Collapsed sewer lateral, a broken water line, lack of heat, severe electrical situation, or if somebody needs like a wheelchair ramp. So those core things, those can be treated outside of the waiting list. So somebody, you know, maybe they're on the waiting list already. They call, oh my goodness, my roof is leaking. We can help you with that. We can send you an application for that right now. And then we get you to turn on the waiting list, we can help you with the other stuff. You also don't have to be on the waiting list currently if one of those situations arises. So that is, you know, something we help a lot of people with each year with those priorities. We do mix other funding to the extent practicable. For instance, we have a lead grant that we get from HUD for lead remediation, and any healthy home repair applicant that has a child under the age of 6 or a pregnant woman living in the home, we're able to use those funds to provide assistance to them, in addition to the home repair funds.
Yeah, no, well, that's good. I appreciate what you're able to do. It seems like we just need so much. I mean, there's so many folks. I mean, we got a lot of old housing stock in the city, and it's very expensive to repair. And a lot of folks who would love to be able to stay in their homes, but just can't afford the repairs. And it's not just them. I mean, it hurts the entire community when, you know, they're not able to keep those homes up, and especially in historic districts where we're trying to preserve, you know, these brick homes, slate roofs, whatever it is. Yeah, so it'd be great if we were able to find, you know, other sources of funding to really ramp up what you have to work with there. So those are my only questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions.
All right. Alderwoman Evans. Oh, I remember she had to leave too. Okay. Mr. Rata, I just had a couple of questions and or statements. And one is about home repair.
Mhm.
Is it possible that we could get more contracting entities certified and available to go out and get these homes repaired?
Are you talking about contractors, like doing the actual work, or nonprofits? I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm really talking about the contractors who do the work, because we no longer require the homeowner to go find their own contractor.
Correct.
Was another holdup in the past.
Sure. Yeah, we're always looking for good contractors, and there are some HUD requirements that they have to meet.
Right.
But we need roofers and plumbers and electricians and tub pointers and lead remediation and carpenters. So we do an RFP for that annually. Kind of advertise that, hey, we're looking for new contractors. But any ideas you all have or any contractors you know of, have them call me, and we'll see what we can do to get them qualified for the program.
I am going to do that because I don't think I've ever received a notice of an RFP for those. I know I haven't.
Yeah, and Mission St. Louis, they're our nonprofit construction manager for the program, so they're the ones that handle that. So what I'll do is I will make sure that once next time they do it, that you're notified as well. So then you can pass that along to anybody that's interested.
I'm going to make a suggestion that it becomes a part of their programming that at least 3 times a year, they have to do something that is very broad with public engagement so that we can continue to add to that list. Not only do we need to add to that list for this program, but we also need to have the availability. People call me all the time about where can I find this, where can I find that, because they trust us.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to know who's out here. I kind of know because I keep myself inside those associations, whether it's the home builders or whoever. But right now, it's a critical need. It's only going to get greater. And I think there needs to be a whole lot more done as far as engaging, having the appropriate list, and having the knowledge there for both sides to know what's available. So I thank you because I did not know that's how you were operating.
And certainly we'll do whatever we can to help.
Okay. And then I made a note here. And so you had 33 staff people. That's significantly lower from what I remember. Are you okay?
Yeah, you probably remember the days back around 2000, 2001, when we were getting $28 million in block grant money, and that's down to 18. So that primarily accounts for that. Although I will say the requirements and the compliance issues with HUD have gotten more stringent over the years. So
that's something that everyone needs to understand.
Yes.
We no longer are the point of saying yes or no. We have to go through a process with HUD. And they requiring a lot more pre-planning. And just talk a little bit about your plan that you have to submit every 5 years. You're supposed to have a 5-year plan, and then you update it every year.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So we have a process with HUD where every HUD grantee is required to submit what's called a 5-year consolidated plan. And as a component of that 5-year plan, there's an action plan. So the plan we're under now covers calendar years 2020 through 2024. So, the first plan had an annual action plan for the year 2020. The one we submitted in November was for 2021. The one that we're getting ready to do the RFP for later this summer will be for year 3 of the action plan, 2022. And as part of that plan, there's a pretty robust public participation where we had a series of meetings out in the community, during hours that people who worked could attend. And I don't have those figures in front of me, but it was probably a few dozen meetings. There are also surveys that were sent out, via our website, and some were just directly email to folks asking for their thoughts on what the funding priorities should be. And that's the real purpose of the plan, is to set what the community believes to be the most pressing needs that the block grant and the home programs can address over that 5-year period. You know, it's a pretty thick document. If you ever read it, it's over 200 pages. So it's not just, you know, a 5-page white paper or anything like that. But there's a lot of thought that's put into it based on the responses and the community feedback that's given.
I agree. I thank you. And then I guess I wanted you to give a little bit more clarity on CDA funds to nonprofits. There was a time when in every ward, we fully funded at least one organization, sometimes two. But explain the difference now and what HUD is saying about that type of funding.
Sure. So most of those organizations were funded under what is called a community development, community block grant, community-based, development organization, a CUBDO. And the real purpose of CUBDO funding is for capacity building. And the idea is it's supposed to be one-time funding where the organization would get kind of seed money from CDA, and then they would be able then to go out and raise funding through other sources, whether it's grants or you know, donations, what have you. And then they would kind of be self-sustaining on their own. HUD had stepped in back in 2013 and said, you guys are funding these organizations as a CUBDO every year. And you can't do that because it's really supposed to be a one-time funding, maybe 2 years if there was something, you know, exceptional. So they changed the process pretty significantly. That's why we have the RFP process that we do now. It was all at HUD's request, and it was a pretty significant paradigm shift, I would say, in how things were allocated. But HUD is very pleased with the process. They feel it's more fair. They feel more organizations have the opportunity to get funding, and they've committed us for the process.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Would you like to wrap up with anything you'd like for us to know that you haven't told us thus far?
I'd just like to thank you all for the opportunity to come before you today. And, you know, we're always open to feedback from the board, suggestions. You know, we certainly want to know how we can help your constituents if they have a problem, you know, whether it's with home repair or something else. You know, we're happy to assist in any way we can. So you know, we'll keep an open dialogue with you all, and please feel free to contact us at any time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your service, and we're looking forward to another year of trying to get things somewhat back to normal and hopefully improve some things. I appreciate the fact that you all are on a regular calendar year. But we have to balance all of this. So thank you very much, and thank your staff as well.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Committee members, the balance of our agenda for today is pretty straightforward. We don't have any resolutions before us. Committee discussion, I'd like to open that up, and I'd like to start with Alderman Boyd. Did you have anything you needed to share with us or a topic you needed to discuss? Okay, Alderwoman Howard.
No, I'm just rather concerned about the budget and how we're going to provide more the public safety, the plan for public safety moving forward. that's sort of the elephant in the room here. We address a lot of the underpinnings of that, but we still every night wake up and hear how many people have been shot, murdered, and what have you. I'm very concerned about cutting back the overtime for the police. I don't feel as though we have a solid plan to address some of the things that are before us financially to provide safety for our citizens. So that said, I'm sure we'll find a way somehow to do this, but I'm very concerned about that, the cutting of that budget. So that's all I have. So hopefully as a committee, we can figure something out. So thank you.
Well, I'm looking forward to further discussion and identifying whatever amendments you all have available for tomorrow. Alderwoman Spencer left. Alderwoman Boyd.
I don't have anything. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Alderman Oldenburg.
Yes. Thanks, Madam Chair. Just for a few minutes, and I apologize because I did miss the meeting where this was discussed, but I went back and looked, and I just want to clarify, and it looks like from the material from the budget director, there's about a $6.7 million shortfall we're now operating under, and that's as a result of a lost revenue from what would have been federal detainees. And I guess I just don't understand at what point we knew that revenue was not going to be realized. It sounded like, and maybe you or someone else can fill me in, but it sounded like originally it was in the budget, and then for whatever reason, with the closing of MSI and the shift of potentially more detainees to the Justice Center, is that what has, and the loss of those federal, and is that at what point we realized that revenue would not come in? And maybe it's a question for the budget director. And Paul, I apologize if this is deja vu, but I'm just trying to catch up. I went back and watched the meeting, but I was distracted. So maybe just a little sprinkle of clarity on that $6.7 million number that is for.
Sure. The $6.7 million, as you know, was the estimated revenue from housing from the federal marshals. Of that, based on the ordinance, 30% goes to general revenue, which would have been about $2 million, and then 4.6 to 70% would have gone to that special fund, 1116, which is for the corrections special fund. That was the revenue estimate going in, and that was the budget that you had received. Now, my understanding is since that time, there has been a decision not to accept any further federal housing or detainees from the U.S. Marshal, and so that's being phased out. Well, of course, that creates an issue given that revenue estimate, but that was after the fact. I mean, it was after once we were proceeding. So obviously, my recommendation is that we resolve that in some manner, and that hasn't been determined yet. But
I understand.
That's where we're at.
So there's not necessarily a correlation, maybe to the potential closure of MSI, but potentially causation, I guess, is the question. But really just extinguishing a contract of housing federal detainees.
Right.
Okay. All right, that's helpful. Thank you. I don't want to open up that discussion again. I just wanted to make sure I heard it again in real time. Appreciate you all.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Navarro.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I have a question, which is probably best for Paul as well. I'm curious, as the ARPA funds are coming in, the rescue plan funds are coming in, and decisions will be made. I'm just wondering if you can give us a quick refresher on how that process interplays with the budget process, if it does at all, or if that's just a separate series of decisions by E&A. Could you just remind us how that works?
Right now, as it exists, Board Bill 1 incorporates only one piece of those funds, and that's the $17.3 million that we're using to supplement general revenue, given that our revenue is not quite pre-pandemic yet, right? And so that was included in Board Bill 1. But any other funds that are to be appropriated or received have not yet been appropriated. So that can be done in a couple of ways. One, you could amend Board Bill 1 to incorporate some portions of it, or two, you got separate ordinances that you can appropriate that. I don't think we have a final resolution about how you want to go about it. I think ENA has been in discussions among themselves about how to incorporate what's the best approach. I imagine that that is yet to be determined, but I would expect that it might be either either a portion that would be included in Board Bill 1 or entirely in separate ordinance. One way or the other, that's how it would go. Yeah, this is an unusual circumstance in that this is not something that's typical. So how you approach is entirely up to the Board of ENA and you as the legislative body to determine how to go about it.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, I just wonder if it might be helpful for us to have someone from the mayor's office just share with us kind of what their thoughts are. And I mean, especially as we're looking at the budget as a whole, it might be helpful to know if they're thinking, yeah, just what the thoughts are in terms of where these additional funds are going to be expended. I know that would inform my big picture view of what we're looking at.
Well, I think that one of the things we're going to have to realize is we're going to be pushing this very hard at the end. I was trying to have the luxury of getting it done in plenty of time for us to get it passed without suspending rules, all kinds of things. So we'll have our discussions tomorrow because I think we need to have more understanding and also because technically this is President Reed's bill, okay? And so we have to make sure that he's in line with whatever we're thinking or whatever other information comes in. So we got a lot to talk about tomorrow. I agree with you.
Okay, well, thank you. I look forward to the discussion.
Okay. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you. I have nothing. Thank you.
All right. Alderwoman Evans left. I don't really have anything else. I think you all covered anything I might want to mention. Are there any announcements that need to be made other than our meeting tomorrow? Hopefully everybody can attend because this is a critical part.
Madam Chair, I'd like to ask another question of Paul Payne, just for clarity.
Go right ahead, sir.
Piggybacking on what Alderman Oldenburg said, because I'm really concerned. So, Paul, legally, since the budget is short almost $7 million and it's out of balance, can we legally pass this budget?
And we sort of discussed this at the last meeting. I don't think it's as much a legal issue because you've got, for instance, let's say you suddenly cut $5 million of revenue out of the budget, of the general fund budget. All right. And then you say, well, we're out of balance. You're out of balance, but you've also have reserves. And basically you're saying, oh, well, by default, you're grabbing reserves, right?
Okay.
So legally you're covered, but that's just bad budgeting. That's bad budget policy. And so you don't want to leave yourself into that situation. Basically the idea is that you identify a pool of revenues, hopefully recurring, that can match your recurring expenses. Now, obviously with COVID, we put it in the 17.3 to bring in from the grant fund, from the Rescue Act, which is what it was for. I mean, it's basically, we're in the process of recovery, right? So that's what that was for. But you want to be, but you're also, and I do this as well. And when you look beyond that, where are you going to be? You want to make sure you've got a balance operating going forward. And so if you lose a recurring source, you want to be able to say, okay, well then how are we going to address this from our expenditure? So I don't know if it's necessarily so much of a legal issue as just a good budget policy issue, but it really, and my recommendation is that it needs to be addressed before it's finally done.
Okay, and to that point, I know I've worked real hard over the past several years to help strengthen our reserves. And even by default, if we say we can use our reserves, the budget would have to be amended to reflect that, wouldn't it?
Now, you know, and again, you're talking from a legal standpoint, and I'm not the city council.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, I have to get to city council.
technically what the balanced budget is saying, you can't incur debt without some legal blessing on it. So you're not drawing down more than you have at your disposal that can be spent. I think that's what basically the balanced budget requirement that is in state statute is saying. And so we look at that and say, okay, but as we also have our own established policies of what we do to ensure that we're proceeding in a financially responsible, fiscally, responsible way. And what that means is that we set goals for establishing fund balance, and we say we're going to budget it, and we're not going to draw on fund balance. Fund balances for emergencies and things like that. And in fact, we're not even, while we've improved our fund balance in recent years, it's not the level where best practices suggest it should be.
Right.
Okay? So you do not want to go into a budget year where you haven't identified all the revenue sources you need to do to cover your operating expenses. So you don't want to be in that position. So again, my recommendation is that we somehow resolve that issue before the budget's adopted.
I would agree 100%. 100%. Madam Chairman, would it be okay if we got whoever the legal expert in the city council's office on budgets to, talk about this tomorrow as we look at making these amendments and so on and so forth?
I don't have a problem with it, but I don't want to do it tomorrow. Okay. I'm going to respect the sponsor of the bill to come in and all of us talk. Okay. And then we need to move forward with whatever else. Because I'm past, we're going to get it done early. Okay. I let that go. We're going to be pressing it at the end. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. And thank you, Paul.
Right. Okay. So I think we covered everybody to speak, and I don't have anything else. I think every alderman was present at some point. Yes. So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second to adjourn our meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.